Welcome to the Family Architect, parenting by design rather than by default. And today I am thrilled to have Matt Taylor with me. Thank you for joining us, Matt.
No worry.
Amazing. Matt is the husband of Nic Taylor, whose birth journey and healing journey you've heard over the last two episodes, and is the father of George, whose birth it was. And so we're thrilled that you were willing and, in fact, excited to share your story of how this whole thing happened for you, because it's really important. It's actually an undertold story. Not often are men even asked, how was it for you? But a lot of men carry birth trauma. A lot of men experience this whole journey almost as a bystander, as an extra part, and it's not often acknowledged that that's actually a journey for them too. And so thank you for being willing to share your journey. All right, let's get into it. First question. Before you became a father, what did you believe about birth and the role of doctors, hospitals, and systems?
Well, I guess, as you said, men's side isn't really told. So, as a boy growing up, I never really talked about birth with my mum. Dad really didn't. Dad was just working class. So, he did what he did. And I mean, it wasn't really a subject that we spoke to boys about. So, I guess you go into the doctor, they tell you how they're going to get the baby out, and that's what you do. They're the experts. That's about as far, like I said, we didn't really speak about it, so I didn't know how my mum's birth went or if she had birth trauma or anything like that. So
Yeah,
it was just they're doctors, they've been to university, they know how to do it. I
yeah,
don't.
yeah, yeah,
That's what you do.
yeah. It's a pretty classic Aussie idea of what happens. I would think male and female to for the most part.
Well, yeah. I mean, being with Nick on this journey has sort of shown me that there's a lot of misinformation out there, and you know, mothers and partners have a lot more power than they think.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. So, w- do you think that your birth or your understanding of the system, birth doctors, all of that, just was inherited? It was just is that kind of how your mum and dad behaved around, with the doctors? Did they ever push back? Was it just, or was everybody just pretty healthy and it wasn't even a thing?
We've always been, I guess, pretty healthy as a family. I very rarely sort of went to the doctor unless it was, major. And then I don't know, become in my adult life, becoming a tradie. It's always just sort of been a stay in your lane sort of area. You hire a plumber, they do the plumbing. You hire a chippy, they do the chippy work. They never really cross over,
Yeah.
and that's, I guess, my mentality around how I structure my life.
Yeah.
This whole experience has changed that a lot, though.
Yeah. Right. I love that. Okay. So when Nick became pregnant the first time, what did you feel responsible for?
I felt like I had to provide the stability. So I guess I swallowed a lot of pain, a lot of emotions, pride, not ambitions. There was things that I wanted to do, but I knew, having a family was not a setback. It's just this is the stage of life we're in. So I had to put a lot of things on hold. And then, so around that stability, it was like I stayed in a job that I wasn't really happy in just to make sure that that was regular income. I unfortunately bought a lot of that home, which was not, which was not great for a family dynamic.
Yeah, okay. So, I guess the scales weren't quite balanced in that space. You
No, I felt like I had to stay there
mm,
to, it wasn't a super high paying job, but it paid really well. It was always on time, guaranteed work. There was overtime available, so there was a lot that I felt like I had to stay there just to be the rock for the family and allow Nic to, I guess, if she wanted to take 6 months, 12 months, we could do that.
Yeah.
So that's, I guess it was a little bit hard.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Okay. So thank you for sharing that, because I think that goes unspoken often. What, it's funny, if you have ever read the work of Alison Armstrong, and I'm a bit of a fan of her, she talks about men and the development of men and how men perceive their own roles within society. And she often talks about this idea that men are the action people, not necessarily the vision people. So, I come up with a great idea, like let's build a new chook house, and then that's it. I've done my bit, and then it goes over to my husband to actually make it happen, right? And he fulfills on my vision. And that sounds to me like what you're talking about. The vision was to have a family, and Nic did the creation side, but you had to kind of do, or you felt like your role was to create the stability, the foundation for all of that to be able to happen in more easily for Nic.
Yes.
Yeah? Yeah. We don't talk about that very much, do we?
No, that's one of the main reasons I suggested to Nic to come on, because I mean, this whole process, like all 3 births, has sort of made me want to get the male perspective across.
Yeah.
So, because I know for me, when Nic first said that she was going to do hypnobirthing, it was just a hippie, la la thing. And then I learned about it and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the home birth, it was a no straight away, like absolutely not. And then now that I've done it, I was like, why would you not do this? Why is this not the first option?
Yeah. I love that. What a journey. So looking back, what was it like for you to witness Nic's first birth unfold? What happened for you?
In the act, from the very start, or just in the birth?
Oh, whatever you want to share.
So from the very start, it was scary because we'd just come off the back of a miscarriage. So I was very closed off. Didn't want to talk about it, acknowledge it for the first 12 weeks till we hit that safe mark, which, looking back now, was not good for Nic, as she wanted to be excited about it, and I just couldn't get excited about it because I was scared.
Did you feel, sorry to interrupt you, but did you feel like there was still a lot of unprocessed grief there?
I'm one of them people that doesn't count till their chicken before they hatch. So if I can mitigate disappointment,
Okay.
I'll do that. So if there's uncertainty around something, I tend not to get excited about it until I know that it will come to fruition.
Okay. Okay.
So, yeah, and then we had, I think it was, I can't remember when, we had a scan come back abnormal. And it was looking like there was potential for a Down syndrome baby. So then we had to have that discussion. Do we proceed? Do we not proceed? Where's your head at? Where's my head at? Had the nib test, cleared that, which was a massive relief because I really didn't know how I felt about it in the moment. Like, I was like, I don't know if I can be the father of a Down syndrome baby. I don't know if I'm emotionally ready or capable of dealing with that. And I'm also, it's still a living fetus. It's still a person. It's still very much, a part of your family. So it was a relief to have that result come back all clear. And then moving into the birth. When she went into labor the first time, I got a phone call, all casual, picturesque. I got home, there was music going. She was on the exercise ball, and it was peaceful. And I thought, oh, yep, I can do this. This is ace. And then it all sort of fizzled out, and I was like, okay, do I have to be on edge for the next day, 2 days? Like, what? This is the first time I've done this. I don't know what's going on. And then I think that was on the Friday. And then I think it was on Wednesday, like 5 o'clock in the morning. She went into labor, half asleep. I'm like, let's just go to the hospital. Let's just go. And then from then on, it was just chaos. I felt like I didn't have any control of what was happening. I was trying to advocate for Nic around the hypnobirthing things and what she wanted, but it was just like I was talking and they just didn't care. It was like, that's nice that you think that, but this is what we're going to do, and this is how it's going to play out. And it didn't matter how much I pushed. It just felt like it was falling on deaf ears, which is, going back to it, I wish I had have pushed a little bit harder, stamped my feet even, said, no, you need to stop, and you need to look me in the eye and listen, so I know that you're understanding what I'm saying. This is what we're doing. This was the birth plan. There's no reason to deviate from that right now. But I froze, I guess, and reverted back to that. Their doctors, their midwives, they know how to do it. They just do that.
Did you feel like anything could have prepared you for that?
A previous birth,
Yeah.
being around it and experiencing it, you would have. I definitely went in the second time all prepared. Like, no, this is what's happening. So I think that's really the only, unless you're a really assertive person, I guess that's the only personality trait that would prepare you, is knowing that you want what you want. And I just didn't have that the first time round.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's interesting. So was there a moment when you realized something wasn't right, even if you couldn't name it at the time?
I remember Nic squatting on the birth stool. I'd have been on the toilet. I think she was on the toilet first, and there was a loud plop. I didn't know, it was in the toilet. The midwives were just crowding her. There's mirrors everywhere, not cameras, flash torches. So I sort of just stepped back and it unfolded the way it unfolded. And then she was on the birth stool and she let out this primal roar. And I thought, I think we're too late for where we want to be. We wanted to be in the bath. Asked to be in the bath. And I think it was at that point I was like, I don't think we're going to make it in the bath. So yeah, that would be, I guess I didn't perceive it as wrong. I just felt like it was too late to follow through on the original birth plan.
Yeah.
I had no idea what the repercussions of that would be.
Yeah. So how did you make sense of what happened, particularly, once the injury and the truth kind of came to light?
I think I just swallowed it and forgot about it and just tried to support Nic in however way she wanted to be supported. it wasn't really I didn't feel like it was my trauma,
Mm-hmm.
so I just tried to show up for Nic the way she needed to me. Like if she wanted to go to the gym, whatever her recovery path was, I just tried to facilitate that.
Yeah. Well, that's
That's
amazing.
about all I felt like I could do. That's how I dealt with it, I guess.
Looking back, do you feel like there was any sort of trauma there for you in watching Nic's reaction even to that and knowing that she was in pain emotionally and physically?
Yeah, I feel a fair amount of guilt around it. Like, I don't know, I feel like if we had got in the bath, would everything have softened? And then maybe her tear wouldn't have been as bad. Yes, we might still have, she would have still had the buttonhole tear, but could we have managed it better? Would that injury have not been as severe? Her recovery not as severe? Her image of birth not being tainted as much as it was?
Mm.
So, yeah, I think about it. I wouldn't say every day, but, whenever we're talking with friends or something, it pops into my head like, maybe I could have done better.
Yeah, okay. So what was the hardest for you as her partner in that period? Was it, hopelessness, confusion, guilt, anger, or something else? What was the hardest part?
A lot of guilt.
Yeah.
And I could have said more. I could have been more outspoken.
Mm.
Like I said before, like, could I have stamped my feet and could I pulled them aside and said, you guys really need to listen to me, and being that stern birth partner. But in the moment, I was more concerned about just making sure Nic was okay
Mm.
and Nic felt supported, so I was in the shower with her, I was holding her hand, I was rubbing her back. And I felt like that's all I could do.
Yeah.
I didn't in that moment, I didn't want to step away and have to have that conversation. So yeah, a lot of guilt, I would say,
Yeah.
around maybe I wasn't the best birth partner.
Mm. Did you think of yourself as a reasonably assertive person beforehand?
No.
Okay.
Certain like in my work, I'm very assertive because I am, like, where I work now is I am the professional
Mm.
at field. So if you tell me to do it a different way, I'm happy to sort of acknowledge that and listen to it, but I need to know the whys, wheres, what, like, where are you coming from?
Yeah.
So in my trade, yes, I'm assertive.
Mm.
Around things that I know nothing about, I'm like, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're the professional.
It's interesting. I've said for a very long time, and I've been doing this work for 22 years and supporting dads to support mums for 22 years. And I've said for a very long time, the interesting thing that happens when a man walks into a birth space is usually by the time he gets into a birth space with a woman, he is competent, if not unconsciously competent in his field. He knows what he does. He's got that handled. He's pretty confident in his abilities in life,
Yeah.
He's driving unconsciously competent. He's working that way. You know, he's got most of his shit together, for want of a better phrase. But when he walks into a birth room, all of a sudden he's completely out of his depth. And he's not only has he never experienced it himself or probably ever witnessed it before, But he's also there's all these people with white coats and scrubs on who are supposed to know what they're doing, and all he can think about often is the fact that the two people he cares about most in the world are going through, something that is inherently risky. Not, I mean, it's as safe as life gets, right? Life is risky. You can have accidents and so on anywhere, but all of a sudden this thing is happening and it's so different and so new and it can actually be, I think, just having walked this path with a lot of couples, a really a really hard space to try and step into that advocacy role because it isn't your area of expertise and you don't have often you're following somebody else's wishes as well. They're not necessarily the desires of your heart, nor are they something that you spent a lot of time researching, understanding. You did the hypnobirthing classes, right? But how many books did you read outside of that? All of that sort of thing. And so there's this it's almost cruel to ask a man to advocate in that space when he doesn't have the background to be able to do that. And we don't acknowledge that that's actually a very, very uncomfortable place to be and can feel like you've kind of had the rug pulled out from under your feet. Does that feel true for you?
100%. Yeah, I wish I could have said it like that.
I've been saying it for a very long time. So it's
Yeah, but very, very much out of your depth zone. And as a man, you obviously you don't even have the ability to be in that position. We don't have a uterus, so I wouldn't even know what the cramps feel like. I wouldn't know what to look for when a surge is coming on, and you have to learn. You have to try and get in tune with your partner and learn what her signs are when she's having a surge, so then you can be prepared for that. So it's very much like exactly what you just said. It's not a world that men are familiar with or talk about.
No, it's not like you go to the pub on a Friday afternoon and talk about contractions and placentas and that sort of stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Maybe the world would be a different place if we did. All right. So how did Nic's unresolved birth trauma show up in everyday life, in, parenting, relationships, decision-making? Was there stuff that you noticed?
Well, I think she had like postpartum depression with Bon and postpartum anxiety with Robbie. So for someone that like me who struggles with talking about feelings, I'm more of a bury it, deal with it later, or maybe it'll just go away and I won't have to deal with it at all. It was hard. And Nic was such a researcher. She knew exactly what was happening and what she needed. And I just, some days I feel like maybe I fell short in supporting her through that.
How did that impact your relationship, do you think?
Well, I wouldn't say it was a positive in the moment, but I'd say it's a positive now, as in, I'm learning to be more open about that kind of stuff because although I don't need it, because I can deal with my emotions the way I deal with them, your partner might not deal with them the same way you do, and they do need that support, that verbal communication.
Yeah.
So it didn't fare well for us in the moment, but I think it fared well for us from a growth perspective, more so me. sort of trying to be more communicative in that space.
Good skill to have, given that you're parenting as well, right? Because
Yes.
you want them to have good emotional literacy as well.
That's probably my biggest thing that I have to consciously think about is I want my kids to be better than me. I want them to not have the same. I get it, they're going to struggle, and sometimes they need to struggle to build that resilience. But around the emotional side, I definitely have to consciously think about how I react, so I don't pass on the same, bury it, deal with it later sort of ability.
Yeah. Well, it becomes like a splinter under the skin, right?
Yes.
Eventually the body is like, this foreign piece is not here with us, and it begins to fester, and then you get all the, I don't even like saying the word pus because it makes me want to vomit. I can do placentas and all the other stuff, but pus makes me ugh. Anyway. But it does, right? It's if we aren't careful, they fester and they become bigger and bigger and bigger, and then they're a big problem.
Yes.
Yeah. So, did you notice changes in her confidence, self-trust, or nervous system that others might not have seen?
I probably didn't notice it at the time,
Mm.
which goes with the bury it down, deal with it later sort of scenario. And it was all new to me. But I guess looking back, there were a lot of phone call to a mum, asking her opinion. So probably a lot of self-doubt around that space. Can I do it? Will I ever learn to do it?
Mm.
I want to be a better father than my father. And then I want my two boys to be better than me. I think that's how society grows, is as long as even if you don't hit the mark, as long as you can somehow get across to the next generation that growth, I think that's how we grow as a society
Mm.
across every aspect of life. That's work, relationships, everything.
How did it affect you as a partner when the woman you love began doubting herself? Because she's a researcher, she's a school teacher, right? Like she's very process driven. When she began to doubt all of that, where did that leave you?
If you can't do it, what hope do I have?
Right.
Basically, it was like I am getting a lot of my strength from you.
Mm.
I always knew I wanted to be a dad. I didn't know what, I only had my dad to sort of go off. I did learn a little bit off my grandfather, which has probably shaped me the most. No, probably equally with my dad.
Mm.
But yeah, in a nutshell, it would have been, if you can't do this or haven't done the research on it, I'm stuck. I'm scared.
Yeah.
But I guess that made it more difficult to communicate.
Mm. Did you feel like you had much in the way of support?
No,
Yeah.
I don't really. My family's not really like that. You know, if you ring up and say I need help and I'm available, I'll come help you.
Yeah. Okay.
But I might not have spoken to this person for 5 years prior to this. Our family, we know we're there for each other.
Yeah.
But I don't have to ring you every day or know what you're doing for breakfast, or we don't work that way.
Yeah. It became obvious to me in the last probably 5 or 6 years, just speaking with more and more young families, because of how segmented we are as a culture. We are very, we're very much with, this is our family unit and we look after each other here. But, like, I'm extremely privileged to have my grandbaby live on our property, right? They're in the shed across the driveway. I can have as much access to her as I want to. And in fact, for my daughter, it means that she's got, she's well supported. I still feed her. I can go and, she's got to have a car looked after or what, like, she's resourced with people. But for a lot of families, there's a distinct lack of that support for mothers and for fathers. And what I've noticed is that a lot of men are required to do all the normal things that you talked about, providing, having to just suck it up sometimes so that there's stability and a foundation, but they're also required to be emotionally literate and be the advocate in the birth space and do all of the, know how to support her postnatally and in an emotional way. And there's a lot of pressure to be everything to this woman. And you want to show up in that space, and she's expecting you to, because, millennials on expect that of their partner. I never expected that of my partner, but that's not what I saw modeled. And we're Gen X, right? So I had this very clear understanding that he was, the man would, and still does, fall asleep if I ask him a question once we're laying down at night, right? Like, I never get an answer to that. And I knew that very early on, that I needed women in my life. It was part of the reason that for me, creating a community once we moved to Townsville was so important, because I knew I needed other women and grandparents and all of the other things. Now, it didn't work out with the grandparents. They weren't who I thought they might have been, but there was no expectation that everything fall to Trevor. And I see right now that happens a lot more with young families. And I don't think anybody's acknowledging that men are being asked to take on far more roles than they were biologically or even culturally set up to accept. And it's a huge amount of extra pressure, in my opinion. And I'm not a man. I've never had to do that. But how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely. It. I want to live that 70s 80s lifestyle, and I still believe in chivalry and being the provider for the family, and your wife stays at home and she cooks and cleans, but it's just not possible into that, like, to raise a family now. Both parents have to be at work. Some things, I guess, are sacrificed, and it might be, that chivalrous nature,
Mm.
because you come home, you're tired, and you've got to get the babies ready, or feed them, bath, or your wife might want to do that because she still wants to spend. So you have to tidy up the house because kids just destroy things
They do.
unintentionally. They I don't know. It's subconsciously like, oh, this house isn't messy enough. Let's sort that out.
This doesn't have lived in yet.
But back then, I guess men came home, they were tired, and they had a meal. The house was tidy, and they were allowed to be men. Whereas today, it's like we really need to get in touch with our feminine side and be more supportive as a household contributor rather than just a financial contributor. And I'm not great at that. I'm still learning and still trying to be better. So it's not I guess, snap your fingers overnight and now you're a house husband and you can do all of these things. It definitely takes time, a lot of heated conversations around needs being met and stuff like that. But as long as you keep moving forward and wanting to provide that and be all of that, the financial provider, what else sort of, providing around the house. I don't want to call it like helping around the house because, I live here too.
Yeah.
So it's a contribution.
Yeah.
But still work. And I guess on the flip side, mums have to do that too now.
100%. We're asking more
So,
mums than we ever did before either, but, gone are the days where mum had her mum around the corner and she could, drop the kids off while she went and got the groceries, or, her mum would drop her over a meal or come and, play with the kids while, things were being done. Those things don't happen anymore either, which, creates a whole lot more pressure on the individual couple who are raising these children. I think it's both couple or both parties have a bigger role to play in rearing children than they ever did, even when their children are, in daycare all day and they're off working, because it's all of that stuff then gets condensed. All of the parenting gets condensed into a much smaller period of time. But we're still asking them to do it alone. And I think that, and it's part of the reason I wrote my book, right? Finding Your Tribe, From Isolation to Connection, because when we don't have that, when we actually don't have a tribe of women and people who can support us, it's a lot more work for both.
yeah.
And women are feeling it and talking about it, which is great. But I don't think anybody's talking about the extra work there is for men.
No, I think the general conversation around being a man or a father in today's society is that's just the way it is, and you got to suck it up.
Yeah.
We talk about it, like my current workplace, the guys in there are really great. They're very family orientated and talk about their kids and that sort of stuff. So I feel a little bit more open in that environment to talk about parenthood on a more emotional level rather than, I guess, I'm a dad and I go to work and go home, work again, that kind of stuff. It's a little bit more emotional now, which is good to see.
Good. I love that for you. Good. Well, so when Nic decided to heal her birth trauma, what did you think was happening?
Hang on, I've just got some stuff written down here. I didn't think it was so much about the birth trauma, but more that she knew there was a better way and she felt wrong, I guess. So she did some research and she knew or discovered that there is a more holistic approach, calmer approach to birth. So, yeah, I think we need more people like Nic to advocate for other women. And then that's one of the reasons I wanted to come and talk to you as well, is to have that advocacy for men. And if women are their partner's apprehensive around, and their partners, just like I was. No, doctors know best. This is, having these spaces that women are talking about it. I think having a space where men can become aware that trusting your partner is really, really important, and sometimes the best option.
Yeah. So when she was going through, because, her process with me was quite quick, it was only sort of 3 or 4 weeks, but did you feel like, or did you realize that it wasn't just about the birth then for her, but about her and her relationship and your family and all of those sorts of things? And did that healing require anything from you? And trust, patience, learning, letting go of control? Like, what happened for you while she was doing that stuff?
I just maintain that supportive nature, I guess. At that point, I was still very much I'll deal with my emotions the way I'll deal with them, and I'll just support you in how you want to deal with yours and how your healing journey is going to go, and not to worry about me. I didn't want to put extra pressure on Nic that she had to also think about how I was feeling.
Yeah. Did your understanding of safety change through this process?
As in,
Well, physical safety and emotional safety, or, what safety being, like there's institutional safety and then there's felt safety, right? Did you
uh,
did you begin to learn about the difference there?
yes, and it would have been George's birth that sort of made that super clear. Is yeah, with Bonnie and Rob in the hospital, it was very much still, although we advocated and we did it, or Nic did it the best way we could. George's birth definitely sort of taught me that, safety is something that you really feel and believe rather than something that you see, if that makes sense. You go into a hospital and you feel safe because there's lots of doctors around, but you don't necessarily know that they're going to do the right thing by you.
Mm.
Yes, they'll help you with what they know, and they'll help you the way they know how to help you, but maybe not so much the way you need to be helped, if that all kind of makes sense.
Yeah, totally. So our nervous system kind of, well, for birth to work, our nervous system has to feel safe.
Yeah.
And that comes from the energy of the people around us too, right?
Yeah.
And so it looks safe sometimes on the outside, or this is what I feel like you're saying. It looks safe on the outside because there's structures in place. But in fact, if the energy and how other people are responding to you, or the world that they've created within those walls or within the structure doesn't feel right, then the felt safety in the nervous system isn't there, which can then impact how birth unfolds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, George's birth was amazing, but we didn't have 200 people in the room with us. We were just allowed to do what we wanted to do, the way we wanted to do it. And the midwives that we had obviously just watched from a distance. And as long as you weren't putting anybody at risk, you were just allowed to do it.
Mm.
So it was just a lot calmer. You never felt like you were doing something wrong. You were just allowed to experience this birth the way it's going to unfold.
Mm. Isn't it funny that you're like, I'm just picking up on your language there, and you talk about being allowed. And I think in our culture, we very much see medical professionals as being somebody who allows us to do something, like we need their permission to do that. And what I've noticed in over years is that when we flip that from rather than allowed, we were facilitated to. Because that's what your midwives did, right? They facilitated an environment that allowed. So the facilitation of the environment made it almost instinctive to just do what it was you were going to do and be in that space. And you didn't need anybody's permission. You just needed people to support that space, right? And facilitation is which if we walked into a hospital system and said, I need you to facilitate this kind of environment so that we can do what we need to do, rather than we often go in and we say, well, what am I allowed to do? Well, we're starting off on the back foot already, right?
Yeah.
If we're seeking their allowance. So I like the facilitation idea, because it takes back that ownership, right? This is actually our birth. We own it. And you get to facilitate what we're looking for. And you're there because we trust you to be there if there is an issue. But this is, they still have to get permission for everything, to touch you, to provide you with care. All of that stuff requires consent, even if you're within their walls.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, at what point did you realize that trusting Nic wasn't about risk, but it was the safest option? Was it after the birth? Because it was actually, that was when it was for my husband, was after we had our first home birth. He's like, oh yeah, I get it now.
Yeah. To sort of back up on George's birth was definitely a birth that, I guess, what's the word? Sort of opened my eyes to the previous two. And the way they were conducted versus George was the like polar opposites. So I guess starting to your question about trusting Nic is I've always trusted Nic. And if she feels strong enough about it, then you're not really going to stop her from doing it the way she wants to do it. And if she's telling you about it, she's done a lot of research on it, and she knows what she wants and why it's safe for her and how it's going to help her in her journey. So I guess it's just listening and understanding. But I mean, any question I had, there was an answer to. There was never anything that went unanswered. So I guess at that point, when I asked the what if question, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if? And it was, snap fingers, she had it answered. And it was like, okay, well, I guess we're doing this. This is how this is going to happen. And I need to get comfortable with it, or it'll work for her, but it won't work for me.
Yeah.
And I don't want to miss out on being there for that. So I needed to listen and educate myself.
So you said that when she first said she wanted a home birth, your first reaction was no. What were you most afraid of, and what did you not know how to articulate at the time?
Well, I was scared, because I've only got sort of Bonnie's birth in my head, where she had to go to surgery after it. So I guess when you say I want to have a home birth, I'm like, okay, what if that happens again? The surgery room's not one level up, 3 doors down. It's an ambulance ride. And then, you know, we got to go through that whole process. You know, it's not, we can't just whisk you away and sort it out. But, you know, the midwives we had in Nic were very open about how that works.
Mm.
And I guess knowing that there was a plan and it wasn't it's a non-stressful plan. So how your partner talks to you and the midwives talk to you, I think, plays a big factor in it. For example, you know, I asked, what if this happens? And it's not like, oh yeah, well, there was no stress in her tone. It was like, yeah, that's okay. We'll just deal with that like this, and we'll go here and we'll do this and this will happen. And you're like, okay, so it doesn't even stress you out. Like you're not concerned. It's not even a thought in Nic's brain or the midwife's brain. And then how they communicated that to me just softened me, thinking, okay, this is obviously not as stressful as it needs to be.
I love that.
This is very, very calm.
And so that helped you move from a place of fear to trust.
100%.
Yeah. That's good. Was there a moment when you thought, I can actually do this?
It's probably not more a moment that I can do this. It was more of a moment that I have to do this. But, you know, after probably a week of Nic saying it's happening, this is what we're doing, it was like, nah, I'm going to do this because my wife wants to do it and she feels passionate about it. And I want to facilitate that. Like, I want to make her happy.
Yeah. So what did having a clear role during pregnancy and birth change? Like, how did that change your experience? Having, you know, a clear role and a job to do. She talked about, you know, your job was the water.
Yeah.
My husband's job every time, just keep the water warm and
yeah,
be there when I need you. But how did having clear roles change your experience?
It made me feel like I was more a part of the birth other than, you know, a spectator. You know, I got to do the manly things, you know, plumb up the water and over the pool. You know, you get to do all of that kind of stuff. And Nic did her part, and that was to birth the baby calmly and safely.
Yeah.
So the clear roles definitely makes it like you more a part of the birth.
And what did it mean for you to be needed? Not as the decision maker, but as the anchor.
I guess it makes you feel worthy. For me, like, to be needed is, I think, something that a lot of men maybe don't get all the time, but they do desire it.
Yeah.
Is that genuine need, like not I need you because you get paid weekly, or I need you because you can build stuff, fix things around the house. It's like, I need you in the house, or I need you at this birth because your emotional or emotional support is valuable.
It's interesting. When I had my babies, I had especially babies 2, 3, and 4, and mostly 3 and 4. I had a lot of women around. You know, I had women to look after the children. I had women to photograph. I had my doula. I had my midwife for baby 4. You know, I had people there. But during transition, it is only my husband's hands I want to hold. He anchors me in that moment when it's hardest. But he was free enough to do that in our home births. Whereas when we were in the hospital births, it was very different. There wasn't even the space, I don't think, for me to realize who I needed and for what. And it became very clear to me, after all the babies were born, that in fact, if he wasn't able to have, he got the water ready, he had his jobs through the labor, but when it gets to that moment of, in that transition space, I needed him. And he was free to do that and to be that person for me because he was also well supported by the women in the room, So it's really nice, but it wasn't possible, particularly in our first birth, for him to fulfill that role or for me to even realize that there was something for him to do.
Well, yeah, I don't. Just going off what you said and looking back at our 2 hospital births, I don't think there was space for me to be there. Yeah, there was always a midwife. They had to sit there because they had to see from this angle, or there was always a midwife there watching, taking notes. So, I mean, just a thought I've had right now is I almost felt like I was in the way at the 2 hospital births. Like I was more of a hindrance. Whereas with George's birth, I mean, you wouldn't even know that we had 2 midwives in the house. We were just moving freely from room to pool to the toilet. You wouldn't even, Terry would poke her head in every now and then and say, you could try this. And I think that language is important rather than do this. And then now you feel obliged to do it.
Yeah.
Whereas you could try this, or have you tried this? And then you go, no, I haven't, or yes, we tried that, but it was too uncomfortable, so we're trying this.
Mm.
And there was no pressure.
Yeah.
It wasn't, she didn't stand there and go and wait for you to do it. It was like, you could try this, and then she left. It was a suggestion, it was an idea, and I think that made me feel really supported, because without consciously sort of seeing her looking at me, I felt like I was guarded, like there was support. Like if something did go wrong, although I didn't feel like somebody was there, I knew somebody was there.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. And not all midwives are created equal. It's one of
Oh,
my.
I think we must have. I think we got
Oh, you got cream.
the golden ticket with Terry.
She's brilliant, and I do love her. She was the midwife for my grandbaby's birth as well. Yeah, she's the bomb.
Okay.
So, how did supporting Nic in this way change your view of fatherhood?
I guess it's not all about being the man. It's about being a softer version of a man, like that emotional space or emotional regulation, I guess, is critical around women in that birth space. So I think that's probably the biggest sort of factor or key in that. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So, how did the home birth feel compared to the hospital births? Not logistically, but emotionally. I think you've kind of answered that in terms of it felt supported and it felt like there was space for you. But is there anything else you'd like to add there?
That's, I don't, hmm. It's probably made me think more about or realize that birth is not an abnormal thing. And I think maybe sometimes we've sort of structured, like the hospital sort of structured it like everything's abnormal. If you don't do it exactly the way the textbook says to do it, then it's abnormal and we need to intervene. The George's birth was very much like it's a birth, and births are different for everybody, and everyone of your birth is going to be different. So it is what it is, and you've got all the knowledge that you need, and it's there's nothing weird about it. There's nothing strange.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only thing I'd add is, animals do it without any help every day. I think I learned that with our home birth course that we did. It was very much like we're mammals. Mammals go and do this by themselves every day, and they go find a nice dark corner, they birth their babies, and that's how it's supposed to happen.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be in a bright room, freezing cold, because hospitals are just ridiculously cold. So going back to, I guess, nature was amazing.
Yeah. It's interesting, and I think I spoke to Nic about this at some point, but this idea, what I love most about my daughter's birth, having had a home birth for her first baby, was that it feels for her just like something she did that day. And yeah, like she's proud of herself because she did a hard thing, because, it hurts and it's a long, long haul. But she did a thing and it's just normal. Whereas when I had my first home birth, and for Nic, it's similar, this idea that I'd accomplished something, I'd overcome something because of the birth trauma that I'd experienced, because of the way I'd been treated in those first two births. And so now here I'd done this thing, and I'd defeated the enemy almost, right? Because I'd done this thing. Whereas, when we get to do that for our first births, when it's this normal thing, there's no overcoming, or there was nothing to overcome, because that's just how it was. And it's the difference though between somebody who's experienced the trauma and the disempowerment of the system versus somebody who just got to have birth the way it was meant to from the beginning. It's a really interesting thing I noticed.
Yeah, I think that'd be really powerful. And I want that for Bonnie, I guess, is
Yeah.
she'll have the support from the get-go to do it the way she wants to do it.
Yeah.
And like your daughter, she's just going to have the birth that she wants from the start, and she'll have that empowerment from day one. She'll never feel like she was, done wrong by, I guess.
Yeah. What surprised you most about yourself during this home birth?
I'd say I didn't have any questions. I was just present.
I love that.
It wasn't a what if moment, because we'd already covered that. Terry had already answered all those questions. Nic had already provided the support there. So it was just, he's just said it was just another day. We're getting up. We're going to have a baby today, and that's what today is going to bring.
Yeah.
No, what if this happens? Do we have to go to the hospital? No fear.
Yeah.
Probably the best way to put it.
Was there a moment when you realized this is what she needed?
Yes. So probably would have been maybe 4 hours after George was born. And, I came in to the bedroom, Nick's feeding George, and she looked like a human being. She radiated, or she was radiant,
Yeah.
and she didn't look like she'd just done 10 marathons. She looked like she had life in her.
Mhm.
And I thought, this is what all of this was about. This is the healing that she needed. She's in her own bed 4 hours after giving birth, and she looks great. So she probably feels great. She's probably sore, obviously. She feels great. She feels like she has, climbed a mountain and she's on top of the world.
I love that. That's awesome. My next question was, was she different after the birth compared to the previous ones? But you've kind of just answered that, really. How do you feel that because it sounds like she had, for all intents and purposes, a regulated nervous system. Did that impact the house, the children, you in that post-birth space versus, postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety?
Yeah, well, Nick spent, I think it was first 15 days or 20 days just bonding with the baby. So I think, I had a lot more to do, but that's how I wanted to show up, was that support. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely just having her feel like a person from day one and not feel emotionally drained from that whole experience
Yeah.
was yeah, spectacular.
Do you have more confidence this time, do you feel, afterwards?
Yes.
Yeah. Amazing. So what do you hope your children learn even unconsciously from this experience?
If you, I guess it would be, if you do nothing else but show up and be present, then you're successful.
I love that.
If you do your best, you're there, you've done everything that you know how to do, because you don't know what you don't know. So if you've done your best, then that's all the success you need.
Yeah. Do you think, or how do you think witnessing birth like this shapes how children see women, bodies, and power?
I've got a good one for this.
Good. Yeah.
I can only hope that it will cause people to ask questions, to, I guess, challenge the medical professionals, you know, to know that people do have power. Yes, they are the medical professionals, but there is a ton of information and research out there that supports them as well, like supports us as parents.
Mhm.
So if you feel like something doesn't seem right, or it's not the direction you want to go, you have all the power to stand up for yourself.
Mhm. Do you think about your daughter giving birth one day? What do you want her to believe about herself?
That she's got everything that she needs to do it. And she doesn't, I guess she doesn't need like medical validation. She doesn't need medical professionals to tell her that she's right. She's right because she thinks she's right. And knowing that, you have midwives or doulas around that will step in if there is actually a medical reason to go on a different path. But yeah, it'd just be that she has the strength, the heart, the knowledge to do it the way she wants to do it.
To trust her intuition.
Yes.
Love that. So what would you say to a partner who feels scared but doesn't want to admit it?
To
A partner.
direct your fear into curiosity.
Oh, I love that.
So everyone, nothing worth doing isn't scary, like everything has fear around it, I guess, that's new. So if you can channel that into curiosity, I think you'll find that there was never a reason to be fearful. And that's true for me. After George's birth, I think, I was scared that I had all these what ifs. And now I'm like, why is this not the very first option? Why are, prospective parents not told, we'll start you on the home birth journey, and then if something changes, we can move away from it, and just really empower that space, the natural, holistic approach to childbirth, rather than funnel into the hospital system, and this is how you have to do it.
What do you wish someone had told you earlier?
Would be direct your fear into curiosity. It's scary, but it's scary because you don't know.
Yeah.
So if you learn or apply yourself to know more about that, then the fear will probably go away. And if it doesn't, then maybe there's something else you have to research. And yeah.
How do you think that and I absolutely love that, Matt, because people I work closely with associate the word curiosity with me. They, often say, without judgment, be curious and ask more questions, do more looking in. And I remember when we had our first home birth, my husband was like, I don't think we should do this. And I said, well, okay, I get that, but you need to go and research it because I've done all the research. I've done all the reading. I've done all the work. If you want to have a conversation with this about this with me, then I'm very willing to have one with you, but only if you're educated. I won't have an uneducated conversation with you. So if you want to have this conversation, we can do that. Otherwise, if you're unwilling to do the educating, if you don't want to educate yourself, if you don't want to ask the questions, if you don't want to do any reading or anything else, then you're going to just have to trust me that I have my body and my baby's best interest at heart. So you get to choose. You get to choose to educate yourself or not. And I'll have a conversation with you, but only if you're choosing to do. Because if you care enough, if your fear is high enough, if you care enough, you'll do the work. And otherwise you trust me enough to have done the work, to have made the decision. And both can't be true, right? I mean, they can, but in our situation, he never did the work. So we never had the conversation, and I just did the thing because I'd done the work and he could trust me. And so that was the conscious decision he had to make, was to trust that I had done the work. But he also had to let go of fear and lean into the trust. So, and I love what you're saying, because if you have fear and you don't apply it to curiosity, there's something missing in there. You need to be willing to do the work, or willing to trust that she's done the work. That's my take on it. Would you have anything else to say there?
No, I mean, fear breeds fear, really. If you're scared about a particular thing and you don't want to resolve that by being curious, asking questions, or, like I said, trusting your partner enough to get rid of that fear.
Mm.
And you have to go through the whole process with that fear, which means you can't show up in other aspects. And then I guess from a family dynamic, you're just scared of everything and you're not showing up anywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You can't support your partner correctly or emotionally or physically if you're scared of everything.
Yeah. So would that answer the question, how can partners support healing without trying to fix it or control it?
Yeah. And I mean, it'd be showing up.
Mm.
You got to show up if it's all you do.
Yeah.
Show up and at least have enough trust in your partner that if that's the path that they want to go on, is that they've done the research and they know that that's what they want and they're fully aware of the risks and what can go wrong, and they're fully aware that the amazing experience when it goes right.
Mm.
And then, I mean, in saying that, it's like, what's right and what's wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. I hear that. Yeah. We removing the judgment piece. Yeah.
Yeah.
So looking back, what do you now understand about birth trauma that you didn't before?
It probably is more about building themselves back up from, the self-belief and the understanding that they do have what it takes and they are worthy
Mm.
of everything that they want and wish for. So, yeah, because I guess for Nic, she probably had a lot of things taken away from her, particularly with Bonnie's birth. Like maybe she wasn't able to do it. Maybe she was a vaginal birth, a natural vaginal birth just wasn't something that she was able to do.
Mm.
So for her to build that back up, the self-belief, self-confidence, to then go and have another vaginal birth with Robbie with a less severe injury, to then keep building and have a home birth with no injury. I mean, can you get a better story than that?
No. No, it's beautiful. So why do you believe this work, the healing, the regulation, this informed support matters for families, not just mothers?
Well, I think without the healing, resentment starts creeping in. Just, yeah, I think if you're not willing to heal or don't want to heal or can't heal, unhealthy habits will grow.
Mm.
And I mean, for a bright future or a healthy future, but it's
I
just
call it a fantastic future.
a fantastic future. You can't live with it forever.
No.
And if you do, then you're probably going to miss out on a lot of opportunities and a lot of exciting things
Mm.
being backed by fear and self-doubt.
Yeah. So if healing one woman can shift the entire family system, what kind of future do you think that creates?
Healing one woman. I think maybe, I mean, you could almost relate it. Like if you go in to a shop and you get bad service, you tell 10 people, right? If you get great service, you tell 100 people. So healing for Nic, I guess she tells 100 people, and then if 10 of those people go on to have fulfilling, like soul fulfilling births, they're going to tell the next group of people. We're going to, obviously, Bonnie was at George's birth.
Mm.
So it removes the negativity around birth. I know Nic had a lot of, well, she avoided it really, but she wasn't not really interested in negative birth stories. Like, we just wanted positive birth stories. Because if you hear a positive story, I think that makes everyone feel a little bit more confident.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And, for our children who are at births, it's a felt memory. It's in their nervous system, right? It's an intrinsic memory. It's not necessarily conscious, but in their bones they feel it, right? And it sets them up for something very, very different. I have come to the end of my questions, but is there anything that you wanted to say that we didn't cover?
Not particularly, but I mean, on the whole, what the healing and what the home birth has done for us, and Bonnie being there is, Bonnie asks us, or she tells us that she's going to have her babies at home like her mummy does.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes for what that holistic approach to birth says or does.
Mm.
It gives people power to make the decision that's best for them.
Do you know, it's funny, like you talking about that, it becomes very obvious in that moment that the difference between, home birth and hospital birth is in lots of ways the fact that this birth, when it's in hospital, it's like, well, we're just doing this thing, right? This is a moment in your life. But the paradigm at home birth is that this is a part of your life. This is part of a bigger overall picture, and it impacts, your other children. It impacts your long-term mental and emotional health. It impacts your physical health long-term, your relationships, your confidence. All of these other parts of your life are impacted by this moment. It's not a standalone event. It's not like, and when your wedding is though, right? Like in the grand scheme of things, when you get married, the wedding day doesn't set you up for failure, and it doesn't actually make or break. It's a day, right? It's a celebration, but it's a day, and we spend tens of thousands of dollars on that day, right? And we do all this research, and we spend months and months and months figuring out dresses and flowers and photos and all the stuff. But it is a day in the rest of your life. The work you did before you got married, the work you do after you get married is what makes or breaks a marriage. But the birth itself, because it's such a physiological and psychological event, it does have the capacity to change how we experience the rest of our parenting, the rest of our relationships, and so on. Now, look, if the groomsman's drunk on the wedding day, it's going to be a shitty experience. But it doesn't actually, it's not the make or break of that. But if the midwife on the day is having a shitty day and she decides to, to take that out on the birthing woman or partner, then it can actually mean that the birth is experienced in a way that is disempowering. And because it's such a physiological and emotional event, it can mean postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, all of those other things. So how we treat a woman in birth and a family in birth can have, inordinately large, impact and long-reaching effects. And yet we are woefully underprepared for that, for the vast majority of people, I think. And we're not supported. You know, when we have we get married, everybody supports us. It's very exciting. We get all this, you know, and yet we have a baby and there's a considerable lack of support given to the parties involved. So it's a really interesting space, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Definitely can change a lot of people's futures if more information is put out there, more power
Mm.
or empowerment is put out there.
Yeah. And the thing about empowerment is that you can't empower someone. People have to take up their own power. They have to be curious. They have to do the work. They have to lean into it and take their power up.
Yes.
Yeah. Which you've done, Matt. So well done. So it's been a big journey, and I am so grateful that you were willing to share it with us and with the audience. I have a feeling that this will be one of my most popular episodes, despite it being probably one of my longer ones.
But I think it's something that would have been good for me. Like, you know, if your partner's a little bit hesitant around a particular part of life or birth, and being able to show them, well, here's a man's perspective, and this is what it's done for him. So I think that's a good thing. That's a step forward in growing as a society.
Love it. I love it. And thank you so much. Did you have any final words?
No, all good.
Amazing. Well, thank you once again for joining us on The Family Architect, parenting by design rather than by default. If you ever want to come back again, we'll have you. So thanks again. And please reach out, folks, if there's, if you're wanting to talk through your journey or you need support, that's exactly what Fantastic Futures is here to help you do. So check out the show notes and there'll be information there for you on how to reach out if that's something that you feel called to do. But Matt, thanks once again for being with us.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Bye for now.